there's no reason to have proof coins unless you want a proof coin of every year that goes back to 1986. But if you're putting in $500,000 or $1 million or even $100,000, what is the point of paying 50%, 75%, 100%, whatever it is, more for a proof coin? Because you're not going to get that back on the back end. Just buy current U.S. Mint lineage bullion. Gold eagles, silver eagles. And if it's outside of an IRA for silver, hands down, 100% of the time, right now, you want to own junk. You don't want to own any other form of silver.
In today's news recap, silver price struggles below 32 pivot. Will bulls push higher? Silver prices hovered at $31.85 on Monday, despite a strong surge in demand, particularly from the solar energy sector. The recent decline can be attributed to improved market sentiment. Investors are shifting focus away from safe haven assets due to easing concerns over a U.S. economic slowdown and optimism around China's stimulus efforts. Ongoing supply shortages are set to play a critical role in determining silver's future trajectory. According to the Silver Institute, global silver demand has outpaced supply for 3 consecutive years, with a projected deficit of 215 million ounces for 2024. This imbalance is driven by increasing industrial consumption and limited new mine production. Despite the rise in prices, production remains 62.8 million ounces below its peak in 2016. Additionally, the Bloomberg NEF report highlights that a broader shortage in key transition metals could further elevate silver prices. The report estimates a $2.1 trillion investment is required by 2050 to secure a stable supply of raw materials necessary for clean energy technologies. Without this investment, the costs of essential metals like aluminum, copper, and lithium could rise sharply by 2030. For now, the combination of rising demand and limited supply points to higher silver prices in the near future. As shortages deepen, competition for these limited resources may increase prices, especially if supply disruptions persist. Staying attuned to these market developments will be crucial for investors and industries relying on silver. This will help them navigate potential price volatility and secure long-term supply stability. Now we'll show you the best clips of the latest interview, but first, smash the subscribe button, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you do not miss out our daily recaps.
In my opinion, these vaults, what's going to happen when the system goes down, they're just going to close their doors. There's not going to be anything in and nothing out. You won't have access to your metal, but that's the same time you don't have access to your bank account. You don't have access to credit cards. Nothing's working. So obviously you want to have metal on hand. And the question in an IRA is, do you take it all out, have it delivered to you, and, take the tax hit plus maybe a 10% penalty? I don't really think that's necessary. The great taking, I think, is going to be largely, if not almost entirely, digital. I think it will be digital from the standpoint of your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts, your insurance, annuities, things like that. And I think longer term, real estate's going to be taken because people aren't going to be able to pay their real estate taxes. So I think that's the bulk of the great taking. I don't think that they will go into, crash into vaults and confiscate, because they've got to physically do that. They can't do that with a push of a button. If you do hold IRAs, and I've recommended this now for years, you want to have U.S. Mint lineage coin. You want gold eagles. You want silver eagles. And the reason being, if you're buying a gold eagle this week or a silver eagle this week from the mint, can they really come back next week and say, but you've got to turn around and sell it back to us? I think there'd be all kinds of lawsuits. I think within an IRA account, could they say gold and silver, or gold or silver are illegal? Yeah, they could do that. And if you own bars, if you own generic coin, those would certainly be subject to it, because it's basically raw and privately fabricated metal. Could they confiscate foreign sovereigns? Yeah, they could. Could they confiscate American coin? Yes, they can, but it will be much, much more difficult because it is U.S. coin. So I would just say, if you hold an IRA and you decide that you do want to leave it in a vault, make sure that they're U.S. mint lineage coin. Now, as far as dealers are concerned, I guess the first and biggest red flag is if you ask the question, well, how much is this particular coin? And they give you a runaround and don't give you an answer, then you could be pretty sure that they're not on the up and up. I can tell you, Andy Sheckman and I did a little bit of investigation. This was quite a few years ago. This was probably 2015, 16, something like that. And there's one particular person that does quite a few interviews and is telling people to do the right thing. They're telling people that the pre-1933 gold is absolutely good because they're considered collectibles. They're not bullion, and they'd be almost impossible to confiscate. And with silver, they're saying you should buy junk silver. And I agree with both of those. The only problem is Andy and I, we called that particular company. And this is when gold was trading at maybe $1,200 an ounce, something like that. And we had MS63 St. Gaudens priced at $1,340, $1,350. And we called in, and of course we got the runaround as to not wanting to give us price. But I pushed and I pushed, and I got their price. And their price was over $1,650. And that's because this particular company charges, on top of the retail price, they charge 26%. But people don't know that until after they send money, and then they find out. And I've had some people ask me about it, and they've immediately called and said, I want to cancel the trade, and the trades have been canceled. But to me, I mean, the retail price is more than adequate for dealers to do business, earn a fair profit, versus this particular company coming up with the retail price, so they're already getting paid on that, and then they bang you for 26%. So yeah, I mean I would say that is probably the number one red flag, is if they don't want to give you price.
Bill Holter, a well-regarded figure in precious metals and financial markets, presents a stark warning about the U.S. economy's trajectory. He contends that the nation's financial system is on the brink of collapse due to ballooning debt and soaring interest payments. According to Holter, the Federal Reserve's $9 trillion balance sheet could expand drastically, potentially reaching unsustainable levels as the central bank is forced to intervene further in the bond market. As the lender of last resort and buyer of only resort, the Federal Reserve, he argues, is pushing the economy toward an inevitable reckoning. Holter places significant emphasis on investing in physical gold and silver as essential hedges against financial instability. He cautions investors against unscrupulous dealers who may push overpriced collectibles or less liquid forms of precious precious metals. To safeguard investments, Holter recommends separating the roles of dealer, custodian, and storage facility to ensure transparency and avoid potential fraud. He views U.S. mint-issued coins such as gold eagles and silver eagles as the most secure options, both for their liquidity and their resistance to potential government confiscation. On the issue of confiscation, Holter is doubtful that silver would be targeted due to its relatively lower monetary value compared to gold. However, he does not rule out the possibility of gold confiscation, particularly through the nationalization of mining operations. He advises investors to focus on acquiring physical gold in trusted forms, as these are likely to be the safest assets in a severe economic downturn. Gold eagles in particular are favored for their official U.S. mint backing, making them less vulnerable to government intervention. Now, we'll show you more clips, but first smash the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss out our daily videos.
Necessarily have to be with an IRA. It could be just an outside trade that you're planning to vault. You always want to have, in an IRA, you need to have a trustee and you need to have a custodian. The trustee basically does your bookwork for you and the custodian holds your metal. And you also need to have a dealer because you need to buy the metal. You don't want all three of those to be the same entity. You don't want to go to company XYZ who says, okay, we'll buy you X amount of gold or X amount of silver. It'll be accounted for by our trustee and we'll hold it in our vault. The danger there is your metal never ever got bought. They took your money and they're sending you statements. I mean, this happened back in a big way back in, I think it was 2000, I want to say 5 or 6, something like that. And I forget who it was. I think it was Payne Weber. And it was mega millions of dollars that they had, that they were storing for years and years, and they never bought the metal. And they admitted to it. They paid a fine. There was no prosecution or anything. They made everybody whole, but they made everybody whole because that's a company that stayed in business. If a company doesn't stay in business, it does something like that, you're out of luck for everything. You're going to lose it all. So you want to have a separate precious metals broker, a separate trustee, and a separate vault. Now, outside of an IRA, there's a lot of companies that act as the precious metals broker and the vault. You don't want to do that, again, because you got nobody looking over anybody else's shoulder. I mean, in the instance of the IRA, you've got 3 separate entities, and each entity is watching the other entity. If your dealer says, we sent the metal, and the vault says we didn't get it, well, there's a problem. But if it's the same company, you're never going to hear that. You're never going to know that. And the metal was never bought and you never owned it. There's no reason to have proof coins unless you want a proof coin of every year that goes back to 1986. But if you're putting in $500,000 or $1 million or even $100,000, what is the point of paying 50%, 75%, 100%, whatever it is, more for a proof coin? Because you're not going to get that back on the back end. Just buy current U.S. mint lineage bullion. Gold eagles, silver eagles. And if it's outside of an IRA for silver, hands down, 100% of the time, right now, you want to own junk. You don't want to own any other form of silver simply because junk silver is the dimes are the smallest denomination of silver you can get. It's readily recognizable. It's U.S. mint lineage. It cannot be counterfeited because all those coins were in people's pockets. They have to show where. If somebody shows you a silver dime or silver quarter that's absolutely shiny and looks perfect, it's probably not real. But I mean, I've not heard of anybody trying to counterfeit a dime or a quarter because it doesn't make sense. Silver's too cheap to do it. Um, but I mean, it fits and checks all the boxes for the reason you want to own silver right now, or junk silver right now, because it will be the best form of barter. And on top of that, it's about the cheapest silver you can buy right now. And a year ago, it was $11 over spot. Now it's like what? $2.50 over spot. And that's the same price you're going to pay for a generic, a Buffalo or whatever that came from XYZ Mint, or a bar. And obviously bars, think about bars. In a system breakdown, would you accept a bar for someone not being able to test it? You don't know if it's real or not. And bars are the easiest thing there is to counterfeit. So it makes 0 sense in silver unless it's an IRA. And as long as you're an American, it makes no sense to buy anything other than junk silver. That's pre-1964, pre-1965 dimes and quarters. They're 90% silver.
What do you think of Holter's take? Do you agree with him that gold may be confiscated? Post in the comment section down below your insights on gold and silver, and share with the stackers if you are concerned about getting your metals confiscated. Now watch this video right here because it's a perfect fit for you. I'll see you on the other side.